the 13th, aside from being a dope game and an even doper movie, is largely considered one of the unluckiest days. But why? I don't know. I'm just kidding. I do know, I'm gonna tell you. Here are the top 5 things you need to know about Friday the 13th. We'll start with the ookity to spookity explanation, and then we'll dive into the real source of the issue here, and that's humans. It's always humans. Number 5, Friday's bad. Most people know the stigma surrounding the number 13, but did you know that Friday has been largely considered unlucky since the early 14th century? In Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, shout out to high school, I remember ye well. In Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, he describes Friday as a day of misfortune, but there's actually some real life-ish to support that. This is a quote from 1804 as it relates to the starting of a journey. I knew another poor woman who made it a rule never to set out on a journey on Friday. Vague enough for you, fortune cookie? In the year 1885, fishermen were known to say, fishermen would have great misgivings about laying the keel of a new boat on Friday, as well as launching one on that day. In 1879, it is said about marriage, a couple married on that day are doomed to a cat and dog life. I don't know what this one means, so explain it to me in the comments. Canterbury Tales is dope, but any book that has a farting out the window scene should probably not be considered science, unless it's the science of farting out of a window, which I would definitely read and relate to. Number 4, the number 13. Like I mentioned in the Satanism episode, to me, numbers are just numbers. They really hold no symbolism. That being said, people find 13, just like 666, to be spooky dooky numbers. Largely, people call the number 13 the devil's dozen, which I appreciate just because I like muffins, though. To some cultures, namely Chinese and Egyptian, 13 is known to be a lucky number. They believe that life happens in stages, 12 being your earthly death and 13 being your ascension to the spiritual plane. But the Viking mythology is my absolute favorite. Valhalla! 12 gods were invited to banquet at Valhalla. Loki, the god of mischief, was left off of the guest list but crashed that party anyway and made the total number of attendees 13. Loki somehow convinced Hod, the blind god of winter, to attack Balder the Good, who was the favorite of the gods. Hod took a spear of mistletoe and threw it at Balder, killing him instantly. Because of this, the Norse gods concluded that 13 was an unlucky number. Not just an unlucky number, but an unlucky number of people to invite to a dinner party. Super specifically, so keep it in mind. Number 3, the witch goddess. Freya was the witch goddess of the 6th day, also known as Friday. She called upon her witches to meet every Friday, their Sabbath, in a cemetery at night, or under the moon, as she says. Because she is good with words. Let's meet in a cemetery under the moon. On one Friday, Freya herself came down and joined her coven of witches to make 13. To this day, a coven isn't considered properly complete if it doesn't have 13 women. But I reject that because I have 2 friends and I'm bad at learning names. So Diane, Anthony, you're my coven now. Number 2, the Knights Templar. Yuck! This is a yucky boys club for yucky boys. Is that judgmental? The origin of the Knights Templar is that in the 12th century, some old rich white dudes decided that God chose them to be rich, and because of that, they are in God's army. They are warriors of the earth and they will fight for him to continue to be old and rich. Huzzah! Because they were some of the most influential men of that time, they infiltrated the banks, real estate, government, what have ya, owned by the Knights Templar. They do a lot of cloaked rituals and have a ton of secret meetings. And they're still around. Y'all think Satanism is scary? A bunch of kids dressed in black who like loud music and funny monsters have nothing on a 70-year-old white dude with power. Trust. Now, with all of that out of the way, I can tell you about Friday, October 13th, 1307. I also should mention that at this point, this story is more folklore than anything else, but people have accepted it as fact, and it's even referenced in the Da Vinci Code as fact. So, I mean, if Tom Hanks said it's true, then it's true, so that's my rule. In the 14th century, the Knights Templar was gathered by the Christian Crusaders to fight against Islam. Will this ever end? After 200 years of ass-kicking, the Templars became so powerful that popes and kings alike feared them. King Philip IV of France carried out massive raids that arrested many of the Knights Templar. Many people died in these attacks. The Templar was excused because there was no basis for the arrest, but in the years to come, the Knights Templar would face excruciating torture, forced confessions, and even crucifixion. To this day, members of the Knights Templar say that Friday the 13th, 1307 haunts them still. Number 1, group freakout. Now this is my favorite theory, not just because it's the right one, but because to me it's the freakiest. Turns out we're all experiencing a collective freakout. You ever feel alone, disconnected from your fellow human? Well, fear not! We are connected in the creepiest of ways. Subconsciously. Let's say that you are at a lunch table and you avoid a particular seat. The next kid that comes to sit at that lunch table will avoid that seat as well. What that first person did by avoiding the chair was accidentally create a narrative surrounding the chair. This normal-ass seat at a lunch table became an unspoken thing to avoid. We choose to believe things that we think will save our damn lives. When there are stories that date back to the 12th century that suggest that Friday the 13th is an unlucky day, it becomes part of our biology to believe that it is indeed unlucky. While you know it's probably nothing, that sense of dread associated with Friday the 13th never goes away. Like, the thought of my mom traveling by plane on Friday the 13th really just freaks me all the way out. Even though my cognitive brain knows, Rachel, it's just a day, but my heart brain says, don't let your mom get on that metal beast. Don't go to a dinner table, 13 people. Mom, stay home. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, but most importantly, subscribe to Slaytrix, which is not this channel, it's a different channel. You already subscribed to this channel, or else why would you be here? Unless you're new, subscribe to this channel too. I love Snarled, I love Slaytrix, and I love singing in a microphone.